Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, we got a lot going on today. We've got Oklahoma and Texas will be joining early in 2024, the SEC. That's going to change a bunch of stuff. We've got our newcomer who our offensive coordinator is calling a freak, an athletic freak. And then also we've got a Triple J James injury update. So we got a lot to talk about in this one. But probably the biggest news right now is Oklahoma and Texas are coming early, which surprises me. The thought was that Fox and ESPN would not be able to get along and wouldn't be able to work it out, but it sounds like they were able to. If you'll remember, Fox was going to have to say goodbye to not only Texas, but also Oklahoma, 4 games each. And Fox News was not wanting to get rid of those two big teams out of their contract.
I hate goodbyes.
That's right. Fox hates goodbyes, especially with two big-time teams like that. But they obviously got it worked out, and I believe it was a $100 million buyout. And right here you can see the schools will forego a combined $100 million in distributable revenue that will go largely to the 8 Big 12 schools remaining from before the Sooners and Longhorns departed. The Big 12 members that join this summer, BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston, won't be a part of that revenue influx. So that's a pretty big deal. That's what? About $12 million, $12.5 million apiece. But don't feel too bad for Texas and Oklahoma. They're coming in the SEC, which is the richest conference in the country, and rightfully so because it's the best conference in the country by far.
Haven't you noticed? You got to be a man to play in my league.
Sorry. So it looks like in March, the SEC athletic directors are expected to make a decision on the future format. They're going to be meeting down in Florida in March. And they've got it down to 2 different models. One would be staying with 8 games, which would be 1 permanent opponent and then 7 different teams, or a 9-game format where you'd play 9 SEC games, 3 of which would be permanent and 6 would be alternate, and they would change each year. It says the administrators are leaning towards a 9-game model, but some of the other teams are against that. And what it boils down to is the best teams want to go to 9 games because they don't care. They want the extra money, whereas the bottom half of the conference, they want that easy win, that 4th non-conference victory, which, look, playing in the SEC, it's hard to get any easy wins. There are very few, maybe Vanderbilt's about it at this point, and they snuck up and beat Florida and Kentucky last year. So even that easy win isn't necessarily easy. So it's going to be pretty interesting how they go. But let's take a look how this is going to affect the Vols, because I think they're going to go to the 9-team deal because it's more money. Now, ESPN has to pay more money, but I think they'd be willing to do that. And here's what they think it'll be. For Tennessee, they think our permanent opponents would be Vanderbilt, Alabama, and South Carolina. I disagree with that. I think 2 of these are correct, Vanderbilt and Alabama. I think the other one will be Kentucky because that's a little bit more important, long-standing for Tennessee and Kentucky. But, who knows? It may end up being this. Auburn would be stuck with Alabama and Georgia each year, which is the absolute toughest schedule possible. It's the one that we currently have, which we always play Alabama and Georgia. And Auburn does as well, so it won't change anything. It's just they'll have the toughest schedule in the country because they're going to be playing 1 and 2 every year, whereas we'll be playing Alabama every year and then Georgia every other year, unless we meet in the SEC Conference Championship. So that's a pretty interesting update. Obviously, something got done in the last 72 hours because a few days ago, everybody thought they would be 2025 would be when they would be on board, but obviously somebody got their feet to the fire. I think it's because the conference wanted rid of them. They were mad because they wanted to leave. And then the other 2 teams, obviously Oklahoma and Texas, wanted to go ahead and leave early. So when you've got 2 parties that want to part, sometimes you can get things worked out. But Fox was the big problem, Fox Sports. But obviously they must have put some pressure on them and got it worked out. So that's the deal. So we'll find out in March or April. Sounds like April what the schedule is going to be past next year. Obviously, we're talking about 2024. Now we're going to talk about Cam Selden. And Joey Halsley has talked about him. He said he's a freak. And he's 6'1", and I've covered this guy several times on the channel. And he is ridiculously athletic, 6'1", 220, runs a 4.4 40. Some have said he even runs a 4.3 40. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's a very high 4-star. I thought he was a 5-star from day one because when you've watched any of his highlights, they're ridiculous. The guy just runs away from everybody, and he's way bigger than everybody. Matter of fact, I'll show a little bit of that here at the end of this. And Halsley said he gives you a chance to do some really fun stuff. He said they're going to try not to bog him down and overload him with too many things. And he's a former track star at high school, and he's got really good hands. And they said, we got to get him good at one thing first. A lot of people are thinking he's going to be starting out as a running back or something along those lines and then work him into receiver. But he may be like a combination guy. I'm going to tell you who it reminds me of. You guys remember Cordell Patterson? That's the kind of freakish athlete this guy is. He's not as tall as Cordell. As I recall, Cordell was a little bit taller, but just that freakish athleticism where you can just do anything with him. You know, he's just so fast and he's difficult to tackle, and he's got those good hands. Now let's watch some of his highlights. Now again, realize this guy's 220 pounds, and he runs around these guys and through them, and it's, you know, they can't tackle him because he's just way too big and shifty. But, you know, it was just, this was a man amongst kids here. And you'll see this all throughout the highlights of this guy. Here he goes again. There's 5 guys should be tackling this dude, and it's just, no. Nope. And he's gone. And that's the difference, too. It's the strength. Even if you get your hands on him, you're not going to tackle him. He benches some ridiculous amount of weight as well, so he's got that big-time upper body strength. But that's what I see the Vols doing with him a lot. I could see him doing that a whole bunch. Kind of a Brew McCoy, but maybe a little bit faster. I think we're going to see a lot out of Brew McCoy this year, too. I could see him really having a breakout season. And he had so many touchdowns. And you can see he just runs by guys, you know, much smaller than him. Yeah, that's going to be a touchdown. And he just goes right around him. He's so much faster than them. And just to prove I'm not jumping on the bandwagon, this is what I thought from day one. And this was 7 months ago. When I think this was like the 3rd video I'd ever done on this channel. Yeah, we missed out on the 5-star, but we basically just picked up a 5-star. They're calling him a 4-star. I don't know. 220 runs a 4.4? How's that not a 5-star? I just don't get it. It's probably just because he plays in a small little community up Virginia, but I'm telling you, this guy's good grief. I'd hate to. How do you tackle somebody 220 running a 4.4? And he's in high school. And here's a little video of the UT coaches after they got that commitment. See? I did think that. All right, so anyway, obviously they're very excited about him. And I'd say we're going to see him early and often. There's no way he's going to stay off the field, you know, barring some injury or something. I see this guy getting some playing time right away. He's just a little bit too fast and too athletic to sit on the bench. But can they get him up to speed? That's really the key. And now we're going to update Josiah Jordan-James' injury. As you know, he sprained his ankle in the last couple of minutes of the Vanderbilt game, which was very unfortunate. And James has been fighting that knee injury all year, and he was finally starting to get healthy the last few weeks and played pretty well in certain games. He didn't play that well in the Vanderbilt game. He was off on his shooting. I think he was like 1 for 7, but he did get injured. And see, the important part that he plays is he plays really good defense. He rebounds well, you know, and he's a very important cog in the team. But we may be without him for a week or so. I doubt he'll play in the Missouri game, which is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, normally with a sprained ankle, and it must be a lower ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain, because they're talking about him being day-to-day. And it says here he's in a boot. So normally, like I say, if they're in a boot, I don't see him playing tomorrow. He might play Wednesday. They might give him a full week off, though. That's what I would do. I wouldn't risk it, especially him coming off that knee injury. I would just give him a full week off, let him get back, you know, as close to 100% as possible before I put him back in there. Because, you know, you got to realize how hard these guys cut. And the last thing you want to do is tweak that ankle again, because then that pushes you back another week or two. So tomorrow becomes a pretty important game. It's at 6 o'clock with Missouri at Thompson-Boling. We should win this game. But Missouri's coming off a really good three-point shooting game. I think they shot close to 50% from the three. So Tennessee's going to have to watch that very closely. If they play good defense and continue to score like they did against Vanderbilt. And I think we're going to see a lot more of a Waka. I think that guy is a very good player, and I think it's pretty clear Rick Barnes sees that because he put him in there for 23 minutes in the last game, which is the most minutes he's played all year. And he scored 8 points and had like 9 rebounds. He's a rebounding machine. He plays great defense. I see him playing a lot more minutes as the season goes on. Probably going to see a lot more of Key. You know, he's been He's been averaging 8 points a game. I think he scored 10 or 12 in the last game, and he brought some offense off the bench, and they may bring him off the bench again. I don't know if he'll start. Probably going to see more of him. So it becomes an important game. And I am glad to see they did shoot better against Vanderbilt. That's a tough gym. It's always a tough gym to shoot in because it's such a weird configuration. It's always been kind of an odd duck, and they're never going to change it. It's always going to be that way. Coaches are down at the end of the deal instead of on the side. It's kind of messy. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that game. But I just wanted to have those updates. Of course, Oklahoma, Texas is the big news coming into the SEC. I'm okay with it. You know, hey, look, with the playoff coming in 2024, the top 12 teams are going to make it. You know, that's really the difference maker for us because we've been stuck playing Alabama and Georgia, you know, every year. And that means we have the toughest schedule in the country other than Auburn. So I like this setup. There's going to be some changes, and it should help us. And again, if we can just finish in the top 12, we'll get in the playoff. And we can do that with Josh Heupel's offense. We're going to – look, we're very dangerous.
That's right. Nice, man. I am dangerous.
And I would not want to play Tennessee because if you look past them, they're going to throw a 50 on you like that. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols, the SEC, and all the goings-on. And if you have not subscribed, it's right here on the left. Costs you nothing. Helps me out. I would appreciate it. And YouTube puts a video right here. It's my most recent one. Check that one out if you don't mind. And I hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk J.